welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel, and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, fighting through a little bit of illness, but I think everyone in the UK is at the moment. But yeah, I feel all right, feel good, and nothing soothes the soul quite like talking hockey. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it's one of the seasonal things in Britain when seasons change. Everyone gets a little bit under the weather, I think. But yeah, excited for today's episode. It's going to be another sort of mini podcast today. The main one will be released on Monday and will cover the entirety of the pre-season. But today we're looking at covering some of the big hitting news that's come out this week and also talking about the Florida Panthers and their chance of a three-peat, especially with everything that they've gone through this off-season. So yeah, do you want to get started with some news?
Yeah, so this has been a big week of contracts. Obviously, we've been in the pre-season, we've had training camp, and there were kind of three big names mainly that have been in discussions for contracts, and they've all got done. So Kirill Kaprizov has signed a new contract. We've had a new contract as well for Luke Hughes at New Jersey, as well as for Mason McTavish with the Anaheim Ducks. So I'm going to let you start with Kirill Kaprizov, obviously a big Minnesota Wild fan. I know you've said previously, just give him what he wants. But 8 years at $17 million against the cap for the Wild. Talk to me about it. What are you feeling about this Kaprizov contract?
Yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm over the moon. Like I said before, just get it done. And I think more than anything, it shows the intent of the Wild organisation to stop being the Minnesota Mild. We're in it to win it. Yeah, okay, it's a lot of money. Salary cap is going up, but I think in 4 or 5 years' time, this is going to be a great contract, value-wise. It's really sort of set the line for the market, which is always a bit scary to start with. But when new players get contracts, they'll be wanting at least Kaprizov 17, if not more, moving forward. So I think it pushes the needle. But yeah, it shows Minnesota in a that they're serious about spending money to keep their best players and not just letting them walk out the door. So he did reject a 16 million a year contract. So not to turn your nose up at an extra million, but I do wonder why he stuck his nose out and drew a line at 17. But in honesty, I don't care. I'm so happy.
No, I think that's a really good point. I think it shows the fans of the organization, the players of the organization, everyone connected to the Minnesota Wild. Um, it shows them that they've got a real intent to be successful. I think they're making a massive commitment into a guy who, you know, like we've discussed before, he hasn't played an 82 game season, which I know is a lot of people's sort of concerns in relation to it. But I think as well, if you're Kaprizov, it shows you that how much the Wild think of him, in the fact that they're willing to commit to him for that amount of money, for that amount of time. Um, he's such a good player, and like you said, putting that sort of flag in the ground and saying, you know what, just because our player wants a lot of money, we're still going to get it. We're still going to get it done. Because we want to keep him, we want to be competitive. Like you said, the salary cap's going to be going up over the next few years in ways that we've never seen before. So I don't think that 17 million, whilst it looks maybe quite severe now, I think a couple of years down the line, it's not going to look that sort of painful. Um, so yeah, I think it's a great deal for everyone involved. He gets his money. Minnesota get to keep their main guy. I think there's probably going to be 31 other general managers that are going to be a little bit frustrated at the money, just because it's probably driven up the contract price of free agents around the league. But these things always happen. There's always a contract that happens that sort of resets the market a little bit. But yeah, I think it's a massive show of intent from Minnesota. One other thing as well, I think there was a lot of questioning with Minnesota. Obviously, they were strapped down to the money of the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter deals for years. It really sort of hamstrung the Wild and limited their abilities to be competitive. This year, they've kind of got out from underneath the bulk of that cost that they had in sort of buyouts and things. I think they are still paying the two of them, but it is a very sort of minimal cap hit. Um, and they've gone out and they've used that cap space to go and lock up their biggest guy. So no, I think great deal for everyone involved. Really happy for you as well to get your main boy locked up.
Absolutely. I'm just so happy. Without Kaprizov, our team is just not in with a chance. And yeah, with his injury history, I get it. I haven't played every single game, but you don't need to play every single game. I don't know. I,
Well,
I
no,
think,
Matthew Tkachuk doesn't play every single game either, does he? And no
yeah,
one really seems to take much issue with him. So,
I think
yeah,
everybody just tries to find a reason to not like it. And I think let's just enjoy it for what it is. That's my view.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, I think just take it for what it is. You've got a great player signed long term. He's probably going to see out the majority of his career in Minnesota, and yeah, long may the production continue.
yeah, I could talk all day about Kaprizov and the Wild, but let's not bore most of the fans out there. So we'll move on to the second big contract. Luke Hughes for the New Jersey Devils signed a 7-year contract with an average annual value of $9 million. For me, potentially a little high based off the production and the quality we've seen, but maybe a bit more paid a bit more based off his potential, perhaps. What are your initial thoughts on Hughes?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're seeing this around the league with a few young players now. Is you're betting on the player that they're going to become. And if you were to say right now, is Luke Hughes a $9 million defenseman? Absolutely not. But can Luke Hughes be a $9 million defenseman within the next couple of years? Yeah, absolutely he can. They've got him in at 9 million for the next 7 years, and I think that contract will be at approximate value probably in 2 seasons' time. And then after that, anything else from there is just an absolute bonus. I mean, he could be one of the absolute sort of premier defensemen in the NHL. Um, and they've got him potentially at a really sort of reasonable fee, which again seems high now. I've seen a lot of people online, especially, which I know isn't necessarily always the barometer of sports fans, but a lot of people saying that he's made an extra couple of million because of the name on the back of his jersey and that sort of thing. But you know, it, maybe, but he's also a terrific player. And I believe the way that all these years are lining up is there may be multiple Hughes hitting free agency around the same time, which I know has been a big conversation around if we're ever going to get all three on a single team, which that is hard when you've got three brothers. I think if you've got two, it becomes a lot more doable. Obviously we saw it with the Sedins in Vancouver. You could have the Eklund brothers could play together in the future, but once you add a third one into that mix, it's like, oh man, it makes it really tricky, especially when they're all as good as
Especially
they
when they're
are.
all, especially when they're all good as they are, and they'll all be wanting sort of big money. That's could be a third of your cap space easily on 3 players, if they're all on the same team. Um, Interesting. We just talked about Kaprizov being sort of like the new benchmark for premier contracts. Another one I wanted to touch on is the fact that Minnesota signed Brock Faber to a sort of a similar deal last year, but for 8.5 a year. So I think Hughes might have been wanting to say, well, I wanted to get more than Faber did. Although I do think Faber maybe is the better defenseman at this point, but that might be my bias speaking. But I think that's Minnesota getting out in front and setting benchmarks. I like it.
Yeah, no, no, I agree with you. I think that right at this moment in time, I think that Faber's the better player. I think when it comes to potential, I think Luke Hughes could end up being the better player once all is said and done. But I think right at this moment, if you were to ask me which one I'd rather have right now, I'd probably take Faber. I do really like him. I think he's a fantastic, really, really fantastic player. Especially as well, Minnesota. You look at him and Zeev Buium are really going to lock that defense down for the next decade, you can hope. So yeah, that's all very exciting. But that seems to be the sort of benchmark moving forward. Obviously, we saw we've seen a few young players around the league sort of sign relatively hefty contracts at face value, but you're betting on the potential. And I think that that's the direction the league is going to go with the rising salary cap, I think.
Yeah, getting them tied down. Um, but yeah, one more contract we were going to cover today. Mason McTavish for the Anaheim Ducks gets a 6-year, 7 million, 6x7 deal. I think that's a very solid deal for both sides. I think. Um, I'm surprised it took them this long to come to that agreement. But I guess 6 years is kind of a weird contract length. Most teams will either go for you either see the 7-8 year mark, or you sort of say 3, 4, maybe 5 mark. Six is it's a contract length you don't really see that often.
Yeah, it is a rarity, isn't it? That you would see, uh, a 6-year contract dished out. But yeah, I think it's a contract that all sides can be happy with. I would agree with yourself. I'm not sure as to why it's taken as long to get there as it has. Um, we're not talking an absolute sort of mountain of cash. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why it's sort of taken them this long. I don't know which side it was that was holding out, or maybe it was both sides holding out, and they've maybe just come to the conclusion. The season starts in a week. Let's get this done, so we can get back on the ice. But yeah, 6-year deal will mean that he will hit unrestricted free agency at the age of 28, which I believe is the age that Kaprizov is now. Um, Puts him in line for a massive deal, doesn't it? You
Yeah, it
think
does.
28-year-old Mason McTavish, he's going to be getting some big money. So it's almost like a bit of an extended bridge deal, isn't it? But I'm sure he will be very happy with $7 million a year for the next six, and I have no doubt his next contract will be bigger. Um, so
I
yeah,
just had a
those have
look at
all.
their fellow players on the Ducks. Now Granlund, Troy Terry, and McTavish are all on 7 million a year.
Mm,
Kreider's on 6.5 and Cologne's on 6.25. So it seems like, to me, I think probably the Ducks wanted him at a lower value, and McTavish said, "No, I want to be at least paid as much as everyone else," kind of thing. They've got a good core of all players, all on the same wage.
yeah, I think they're kind of setting like almost little internal cap, aren't they? Of saying, right, okay, 7 million, sort of the top end of where we're going at the moment. Um, and yeah, maybe they wanted to have McTavish at 6 or 6.5 or something, but yeah, I think he's well deserving of that money to put himself up there with the likes of Granlund and Terry. Um, yeah, I think that works well for everyone involved. I think.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any. I mean, obviously, barring the absolute gargantuan one of Connor McDavid, but even then, he's still got a year to figure that one out. I think contract-wise, I think that's pretty much everyone around the league sort of locked up and ready to go. Um, Obviously, there'll be some. There's a lot of RFAs or sorry, players that will be hitting RFA status next year that are able to sign their next contract from now. The likes of Bedard and Fantilli, etc. There's a few others who I think are due for extensions at the end of the season. But I just think that if the cap's rising the way it's rising, um, why would you sign it now? Especially if you've got another year to sit on it, bet on yourself. The cap's going up. There's going to be more money floating around. Don't sell yourself short now, and see what you can do over the course of a season, and bet on yourself to come out with a higher contract.
Especially the young players on poor teams, because they can always use the bargaining chip of, well, I haven't done so well because the team's shocking. Um, I ain't got the players around me to do it, so therefore, yeah, I think that'd be smart. Bet on yourself and wait until next year. So I think next off season is going to be a very busy one for us talking contracts. But yeah,
Big time, big time. Right, we'll get into the Panthers then. So Florida Panthers have won back-to-back Stanley Cups the last 2 years. They've been such a good story. The team chemistry on and off the ice. They're a team that hasn't necessarily lit it up in the regular season, but when playoffs come around, they're a team that are manufactured, specifically for the playoffs, it would seem. Obviously, everyone's been sort of querying whether or not they're going to be able to win three on the bounce. It hasn't been done for a very, very long time until the massive injury sustained to Aleksander Barkov, who's going to miss pretty much the entire season with an ACL and MCL injury. So he's going to miss around 7 to 9 months. So just to kick this off, Nathaniel, how do you think that this Barkov injury impacts the Panthers' ability to get that storied three-peat?
I think it absolutely impacts them like a great deal. Panthers are a team. Obviously, they've got the well-known names; people will know them. But as opposed to other teams in the league, they don't have their storied sort of franchise, big, massive name star player who grabs all the attention. They're a team that is well built, well rounded. Barkov is arguably their best player, but would obviously go a lot of the times unnoticed because he isn't a first line scoring forward, etc. He is so pivotal to how they operate on the sort of on a two-way sort of defensive player. Obviously, he's won the best defensive forward trophy several times. I just think he's got so much grit and no nonsense approach to hockey, and I think, well, for Panthers fans' sake, I hope that they can carry through that identity without him. I mean, he's even come out now and said that even though he's said he's going to be out for 7 to 9 months, he wants to come back in 6. Whether that's just motivational speech, is probably going to be that. But yeah, it is a big loss for them, and I do think it will impact them further down the line. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I echo all of that. They're very much a team where, the sum of its parts is greater than one single player. I mean, yes, that, don't get me wrong, they've got some absolutely, outstanding players, aside from Barkov, that, they've got Reinhardt and Kachuk and, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Lundell. Even their depth pieces sort of further down the lineup, your likes of Evan Rodriguez and Jesper Boquist played a good season last year, and Maki Samoskevich was a really exciting sort of younger player coming through as well last year. And I just think that it's almost like they've just taken out such a key piece. I think it is going to really, really impact their season. Um, I know he said he'd like to be back in 6, but I just think with ACL and MCL injuries, anything around the knees, with so many sharp changes in direction and the way that they move around on the ice, I think it's going to be really difficult. Even if he does come back in six. You're not going to see him back to his best probably for another 3 to 6 months as it is anyway. Um, you often see hockey players come back and they're a little bit maybe tentative on their, on their skates, maybe not necessarily fully trusting their body. But yeah, Barkov is such a big loss, and it's quite interesting actually. I know he's won the Selke Trophy on numerous occasions. He's still someone who every year when they do the player polls and they ask the players a bunch of questions and everything, they always ask about, who the most underrated guy in the league is. And every year without fail, it's Aleksander Barkov. And, you know, the guy's a two-time Stanley Cup winner now and like multiple Selke Trophy winner. How long can someone stay that underrated for? It's bizarre. But yeah, I think it's going to really impact them. Certainly in the regular season, um, it's just going to be really tough, really tough. I think they'll still make the playoffs. I think it'll now be a little tighter than they would have thought or would have hoped for. But I do think they'll still make their way into the playoffs. And if he can come back for the playoffs, then that'll be a massive boost for them. But yeah, I'm not necessarily holding my breath. And I know I said last week, why not in relation to a three-peat? And then literally, a couple of days later, this happens, and now I
Training
think
as well.
yeah, I think it's going to make it really, really difficult for them. But if there was any team that could go out and do it, I think this team's got the collective morale between them all to get it done.
Yeah, this is a team who's highly physical. The players carry injuries. Now, all hockey players, they're absolute machines. They play games with carrying injuries, obviously some quite severe ones as well. Obviously, you can't skate with no knee, so I'm not saying Barkov's going to play on a torn ACL, etc. But when it happens in the middle of a season and you're carrying through that momentum, you're in one game after the other, and it's a player in, player out. You're sort of in a battle zone, war zone, just kind of getting through it. That is one thing. That happen it happening a week or two before the season starts, knowing you've got 82 games to play before you even get to the playoffs, and players are carrying injuries and stuff, but you haven't got your captain. I think for a team like this that work together so well, I just can't underestimate how much of an impact it could have, and that's on top of Kachuk being out for several months as well. These are the two top players on their roster in terms of salary cap, both gone for the majority of the regular season. And like you said before, at the top of this section, like they're not regular season, like they don't play necessarily really well in the regular season. They're just a great playoff team. So I would still put them in the playoffs, but them dropping off and maybe wild card spot wouldn't be totally against it, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to make it a bit more of a test. But one of the things I'm interested to see sort of from this is how the rest of that team steps up. And I think in particular, someone like Anton Lundell, who, had a great year last year. He got, 45 points in 79 games. But, that kind of top end centre role is going to be sort of up for grabs. And I think it's his if he wants it, or potentially it's his by default, and he's going to have to, fill the boots real quick. Yeah, I think there's going to be a few players. Sam Bennett last season had a 51 point season. Obviously, he was the Conn Smythe Trophy winner and everything. So they're going to be putting a lot on the likes of Lundell and Bennett and Verhaeghe especially as well. Not to mention, Reinhardt, who was also a Selke Trophy finalist last season. They're going to expect him to find another gear and fill in, fill in for Barkov. So I think their team makeup is going to be, quite difficult. And with the new collective bargaining agreement as well. It's been sort of agreed with the NHLPA and everything. So that's the kind of don't know how you describe it. It's almost like the set of rules that impact the players as such around sort of contracts and salaries and things like that. Um, Florida wouldn't be able to get the full salary cap relief for Barkov unless they declared him out for the entire season. So they're changing the way that the salary cap works around the playoffs and everything like that. I think 'cause a few teams have maybe try and take a bit of unnecessary advantage of that. Vegas, we're all looking at you. Um, but yeah, if
The
they
Stone
wanted to
Cap.
get, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Mark Stone stubs his toe, and that's it. He's on LTIR, and it means I can go and bring someone else in, and he's miraculously fit for the playoffs. Um, but yeah, if they wanted to get that full cap relief for Barkov and be able to then fill that roster spot with, another high quality player, they would need to ultimately declare him out for the whole season, which I don't think they want to do, and I don't think Barkov wants to do either. Obviously, that's not a decision they have to make now. They can get to, January, February time and see where he is, and if they think he's going to come back, then they can hold off. But if they think he's going to be done for the year, then they could declare him out, and they would still have they'd still have time then before the trade deadline to bring someone in. Also, as a little aside, probably on more of a personal note for Barkov and extending outside of the Florida Panthers, obviously he was already decided that he was going to be the captain of Team Finland at the Olympics. Now, that's going to be such a massive blow for Finland in terms of their sort of medal hopes. And I know that they've said this week that they're not going to name a replacement captain, I think, until pretty much the Olympics themselves roll around, because they don't want to, disrespect Barkov in that manner. And I think they've got a lot of decisions that they need to make. But such a shame when we've just been able to get NHL players back into the Olympics, that one of the, highest end players and one of the captains of one of the biggest nations who are going to be there is going to miss out.
Yeah, it, it's just frustrating all round. Like injuries always ruin seasons and fans' views and professionals and everything like that. It just hit. There's no winner when a big injury happens. Um, so yeah, that is a big shame. That is probably not going to be at the Olympics. Um, I mean, as much as for sentiment for Team Finland moving forward into the Olympics and not wanting to name another captain at this point, I just hope that they don't take this too sentimentally and for it to impact their ability to plan and prepare for the Olympics themselves. Whether it would be best to simply move on, change your plans, and adapt. So
Yeah, I wonder if
tricky
there is
that
an
one.
element. I wonder if there is an element to it where maybe whoever it is that they do, whoever it is that they have in mind to replace Barkov as captain. I don't know who that would be off the top of my head, but I don't know if maybe it's something that they maybe have like a private one-to-one discussion with them and say, look, we would like to name you captain. So, well, we are going to name you captain, but we're just going to keep it sort of out of the spotlight for a little bit until the sort of emotional impact of this blows over. So yeah, I imagine that the people in charge of planning everything for Team Finland at the Olympics will sort of have contingencies and everything like that. But it's a big blow, but like you said, hopefully they can either let the emotional aspect of this situation completely destroy them, or we've seen it in certain situations in the past as well, where a situation like this rallies a team, and it could end up seeing Finland get that extra 10% on the ice that pushes them on. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, because
Personally,
it's happened so
can't
far
wait.
ahead of it.
Yeah, can't wait for the Olympics. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, it is. The Four Nations last year was amazing. Um, yeah, I wanted to touch a bit more on I know it's maybe a bit of a boring subject for some, but I quite like it. But just pure salary cap issues with Barkov going out. The Panthers are currently set to be 4.5 million over the salary cap this year at the minute. unless they're going to make some moves and make some adjustments elsewhere, it might just be a conscious decision to put Barkov, because then that'll then not only cover their salary cap deficit, but then give them a bit more breathing room to make some further signings. But that we don't need to deep dive that unless you got more to say on it. I just thought I'd mention
No,
that as well.
I think that they can. I think if they put him on LTIR, I think they will get a partial salary cap relief, which will bring them sort of back down under the cap and will solve that sort of immediate issue. I know there's been a lot of talk over the summer about whether they would need to trade someone like Evan Rodriguez, for example. But I think if between Kachuk and Barkov going on LTIR, they will get a enough salary cap relief in the partial relief that they'll get to bring them back down comfortably. It's just not going to give them too much sort of wiggle room to add anything in. But that being said, I don't think they really need to add too much in. I think especially since they were able to go out and get all three of those big, free agents re-signed. So in Bennett, Marchand, and Ekblad, I think now that the need for them to go and add as much, I think is probably much less now.
Fair enough. Now, in terms of their general three-peatness, I think it's worth to cover how difficult it is for any team in any sport to win three in a row. The last time it was done in the NHL was New York Islanders way back in the 1980s. Even if Florida were at full strength, what are the chances of any team going three back to back?
It's so difficult, isn't it? And like you said, I think obviously it was a very different game. Back when the Islanders did it. I think that will have been around the time they had Mike Bossy in the team, and they had a really, really fantastic roster, and teams were able to be a bit more dominant. Obviously, there wasn't a salary cap as well, which helps. But I think especially in the sort of hard caps era, it just makes it really hard for teams to be that good consistently year after year. And I think as well, the game is played at such a high speed and it's played with such physicality that I think one of the main reasons that stops teams from being able to win, especially three in a row, is I think just that accumulative bodily stress. I mean, we're potentially seeing it with Florida firsthand. I mean, losing two of their biggest players to injuries, and I know that Barkov's injury was caused by sort of just like a bit of a freak incident, collision. It wasn't anything particularly malicious that happened or took place. But, you know, the stress on the body of making deep playoff runs and, you know, playing at that level of intensity season after season, it just kind of puts the body sort of in that, it's sort of in the red zone for an injury. So I think that's sort of one of the key reasons why teams struggle at this particular sort of juncture of the game to be up there year after year after year and actually lifting the cup. Um, I, for what it's worth, if I was a betting man, I don't think that they will win it for a third straight year. I think I could see them getting to maybe like a conference final or something like that. But I don't see it happening where they would get that third one over the line.
Yeah, generally speaking, for me to predict somebody to win a three-peat, it would be obviously they've won two. That's a hard enough challenge in and of itself. And then there has to be either a continuation or some kind of sort of improvement or refresh that's clear and obvious that would stand them in good contention. But even where teams are doing well and make every single change you want them to make in an off season and go into the season fit and healthy, etc., there's by no means a guarantee to win a cup. There's 32 teams. I'd probably say there's 7 or 8 teams who are in with a decent shot this year that we can safely predict could be in the Stanley Cup. But there's only 2 teams in the Stanley Cup finals, and only one winner. So just by law of averages and law of maths, it's going to be highly unrealistic. Um, no team really in any sport has won anything sort of 3 times in a row for the most part. So I just think with these injuries, it all stacks against the Panthers. Um, is it something you want to happen? Will you be supporting the Panthers? Obviously, taking out being Blackhawks and Wilds fans, etc. Would you want them to get the three-peat? Would you be supporting that in the playoffs?
Um, hmm. Yes, I think I would. I think for the historical element of it, I think, and the overall achievement, um, I think that yes, I would, because I think it is collectively accepted across the sport that like this is, it is really, really tough to do. And I think for that reason, I I would. The only thing kind of stopping me is that I would quite like to see someone else win it. Um, especially someone like, I think there's a few players out there who are yet to win a cup, who are very much due one. Very much thinking Conor McDavid in this aspect. But like, I would love the Oilers to win the cup. For him more than anything else, just to kind of solidify his greatness, I think. Um, yeah, but I think if push came to shove, if you'd say, do you or don't you want them to get the third? I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I think being a sports fan is all about the storylines. It's all about the history. It's all about you know, the I was there moments. And like you said, a team hasn't won three in a row since that Islanders team in the '80s, who actually won four in a row. They did one better, so they won all of them from '80 to '84. So that's been what 45 years since we've seen that happen. Um, you don't know when the next opportunity is going to be that you are going to see something like this happen. So I just think, yeah, if you can witness a third successive Stanley Cup on a team in the salary cap era, I think that potentially has that Florida Panthers team go down as one of the greatest NHL teams, historically the game's ever seen. What about you? Are you sort of supporting that three-peat attempt?
Yeah, I think I am. And it's a lot of the same things that you've already covered, really. It's just a witness in history. Um, Obviously, the Panthers have come from, obviously a relatively new team to the league. That they're not, they don't have that sort of history. So it's like a new team up and coming. Always like a bit of an underdog as well. So in terms of a franchise, the Panthers doing it is also a bit of a cool moment. But another element I like to this is the fact that the last time somebody was set up to do this was their rivals, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who made it to their third Stanley Cups in a row, but then lost to the Avalanche in 2022.
Yeah,
Yeah, and obviously, as soon as they lost that one, the Panthers reached the Stanley Cup final, but then lost to Vegas, and then was 1-2 on the bounce. So, yeah, not to add to that, but obviously the Panthers will have to make their fourth Stanley Cups finals in a row.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Who would have thought that there'd be so much hockey lineage in Florida?
yeah, the, yeah, I didn't know they knew what ice was down there. But anyway,
Yeah, well, it's because of the tax loopholes that are down there in Florida, isn't there? That Gary Bettman won't acknowledge provides teams with any advantage. I personally disagree, but the league aren't going to do anything to stop it, so I'm not gonna waste my energy.
no. Um, but yeah, if you're looking to movie franchise, maybe look at Fort Lauderdale or somewhere like that, and then you might be more successful at winning.
Yeah, anywhere but Canada, it would seem. If you want success and you want to win a cup, don't put it in Canada, and ideally put it in Florida or somewhere down south. or in Nevada or something like we could get a Reno based NHL team. That'd be fun.
It's a big market there, big market.
Oh, massive. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we've covered everything that we need to cover on the Panthers. Really, I know today has very much been a bit of a. I think when we'd planned for this episode, obviously Barkov's injury hadn't happened at the time, so it was going to be. It's ended up being a slightly different episode than we've planned, but I suppose in the world of sports podcasting, this type of thing is always going to happen. Um, but yeah, I think we've covered them in sufficient detail. And I think as well, obviously the news around the league with the few big contracts. Obviously, if there is any other big developing stories around the league, we'll be touching on those as well. But yeah, was there anything further from yourself, Nathaniel?
No, nothing further on me. Do you want to go off on our little plugs today, and then we'll sign us off?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So as always, you can follow us on both X and I was about to say X and Twitter there, on X and Instagram at the PBP podcast. You can also get in touch with us via Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any feedback, suggestions, comments, anything along those lines. And as always, any 5-star reviews on Spotify or Apple Podcasts is always sincerely appreciated. It really, really helps us in terms of pushing us in the algorithm out to other hockey fans and fans around the UK and fans further afield. Um, so yeah, any support that you can give us at this time would be massively helpful. Yeah, that's everything from me.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks for joining us again today, everybody listening. And with that, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.